All right, Nick, let's talk about the Los Angeles Rams. Joint practice season is in session, and there's one player on the Rams who is getting a lot of praise from the opposition. I'm Andrew, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, Nick, as I alluded to, there's one player on this Rams team who's getting a lot of praise from the Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott. This is really surprising news here. Let's get into the article, and we can talk about it more on the other side. This, of course, is over from The Athletic. It says, Jared Verse had an extremely active day in the second ones period. He looped around to help the inside linebackers fit one run, then dug inside on another. Verse was also one of the more vocal players on the field. That's from Dak Prescott. He says, he talks, which I like, Prescott said, smiling. He can talk, but he was a great player, and he was back there to be able to talk. You better be getting back there and making plays, and he did that. A little exchange. I told him, good job, keep playing. Obviously, he's a young player. He's very talented. That jumps off the tape. I think this is very high praise from Dak Prescott, a guy who's definitely been around the block. I think this is a great sign for Rams fans about Jared Verse. I'm curious what your thoughts are on this one. But, Nick, before we get to you, Rams fans, in the comment section below, let us know. Preseason game right around the corner. You're going to see it in just a day or so. Let us know in the comments below who you're the most excited to see in preseason. We're just a few moments away from it starting. So let us know in the comments below who you're the most excited to see. And while you're down there, check out the description below the video. We have our recommended reading for this offseason. We've been recommending it all offseason. We're going to keep recommending it. It is none other than Playmakers by Mike Florio. It's a great read. It breaks down the NFL like no other. Mike Florio, a great writer. So if you want to get the book, use our Amazon affiliate link in the description below the video. It costs you nothing extra, and it really helps us out. But nonetheless, Nick, what are your thoughts on Versus Compliments by Dak?
Look, now that we get into this joint practice season, one of the things we always look for is what does the opposition say about certain players? Because you'll always get your own teammates most of the time to say good things, right? And usually the coaches will try and say good things, right? It's kind of what you expect. You won't get your own teammate to say you stink, right? But it's very interesting is when the opposition, when the competition says something positive about you. That's serious, right? These are guys like Dak Prescott, like you mentioned, been around the block, right? He knows a thing or two about young pass rushers really impressing him, right? Obviously, Micah Parsons being a young pass rusher who joined the Dallas Cowboys a number of years ago. So Prescott is sort of a reputable source in terms of young defenders making a name for themselves. That's why it's such a great sign that Verse impressed him. And look, there's reason to think it. He absolutely dominated that practice, those joint practices with the Dallas Cowboys. There's a viral clip going around of Verse using a bull rush and one-on-one pass rush and just absolutely obliterating a Dallas tackle. Aaron Donald himself actually reposted it, which I think is kind of a great sign for Verse and talking about a great endorsement in Aaron Donald, right? So again, Verse dominating practice, and it's not just what he's showing in the viral clips, which you always have to take with a grain of salt. It's not just what he's being told in terms of Dak Prescott being very impressed by him. The odds makers, the smart money think Versus has a really great chance to be Defensive Rookie of the Year. He right now is the 4th best odds to be Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think that's a great sign because there's a lot of really big names I think that are higher than Verse. I look at a guy like Dallas Turner, for example, who a lot of people going into the draft said he's just cookie cutter made to be Defensive Rookie of the Year. The fact that Verse isn't too far behind a guy like Turner, I think we're seeing a lot of momentum behind Jared Verse becoming an early impact player for this Rams defense. And look, they're going to need him, right? There's obviously a lot of talent. You look at Turner, you look at Young, of course, Fisk being a young guy. I think he just poked his eye. He had to leave practice. I think he seems fine. But this defense, especially up front, is young. They've got a lot of talent, but they're going to have to rely a lot on that youth. But looks like so far, Verse is going to be willing to be that guy they need, be that edge rusher, that game wrecker that they drafted him to be. Great start so far early in his Rams career for Jared Verse.
Yeah, Nick, and I really liked the comments by Prescott. I think it's really great because he's a guy, like we said, he's been around the block. He knows what's going on, and I like the aspect he talks about, you better not talk unless you can back it up. But then he goes on to say, well, Verse, he was a guy that was back there backing it up. He was getting in the backfield. He was causing havoc. So I like what Prescott was saying about him because it really makes you feel good as a Rams fan when you have a guy who talks the talk, but he also can walk the walk. I think Jared Verse really is impressing a lot of people early on at camp. I think he's doing a great job. I think, when he was drafted, we always talk about this pod. We talk about the pod of players that was drafted in Fisk and Verse. We talk about the new strategy that the Rams had in the draft. And now we're wondering, okay, are these guys capable? We've talked a lot about Fisk. Fisk has done a lot of good things. He's been very impressive, but Verse in his own right. So when these two guys that they drafted are the guys they're talking about the most in camp, I don't care how they drafted them, what the strategy was, whatever the pod was that they drafted them in to be with. I just think that Verse is a flat-out good football player, and he keeps proving it, and we saw it here in this joint practice.
And you know what, you bring up a great point, right? The pod strategy, all that's a really smart strategy, but it only works if the guys are good, right? And again, we expected Verse to be good, but we hadn't seen a whole lot of him yet. Now that we see him in this joint practice mode with Dallas, he's doing a lot of really, really nice things, impressing Dak Prescott. Again, it's proof that he's going to be a good player, which makes it much more likely that this pod strategy is going to result in huge dividends for the Rams.